Hey everyone, thanks for joining in Capitalism today. Thank you for supporting this channel. Thank you for being a guest who comes back and listens in. We have to come together to talk about capitalism in our lives and in the global world, how that is impacting people and their livelihoods and their mental well-being. Capitalism affects not just the pockets, it affects the mind, it affects the spirit, it affects the soul of people, because when you don't have the money to pay the rent, to have a car, to have disposable income, it is mental distressing. It takes a toll, and I don't have to explain that to you, because you've been there, I've been there, we've all been there, and we will continue to go there if we don't start looking at the end to capitalism. We have to get into the mindset that this system can end, and we as the laborer and the consumer will be the ones to end it, because the reality is the venture capitalists, the billionaire and the millionaire, they're not interested in ending capitalism. They have the advantage point now. So they are going to want to continue that system as long as they possibly can. And then you have the elected official, right? They're not going to end it because they operate with the same agenda as the venture capitalists. But they have the law in the hand. So they have the law and the advantage of economics, or setting the policies for economics. So you must understand how much of a constricted situation the worker is in and the consumer is in, because we don't have the support. Many times we don't have the love and the care from our elected officials, as well as the venture capitalists. So who do we have left? Well, we have one another, because we know that the system of capitalism cannot thrive if we don't purchase, if we don't report to work. We are the ones holding that system. We are enablers of it. I've said this before, but we fail to see just how we are actively pushing the system through, and we are accepting it. Some people subconsciously, others consciously. Many times we're just forced into it. Well, actually, we are forced into it for many, many times and many, many generations. And that's why we have the stories upon stories of people talking to us about capitalism, and talking up to us about work, their lives in the past, and how that is still affecting the present generations. So I want to talk about the dynamics of the rich and the poor. You know that it is a relationship that is there to stay. It seems like an eternal relationship, because that relationship is always active. There's always that it's like a tug of war. The rich pulls resources and energies from the poor, and the poor, of course, is trying to get that back as much as possible. And mind you, the poor and the working class, we are in the same boat. We are in the same status, the same strata. So we together, we are feeding off each other. Now, one of my favorite quotes is by the late Leo Tolstoy, one of my favorite writers. He once said that, quote, "The pleasures of the rich are often acquired by the tears of the poor," end quote. So the rich cannot be rich without the poor and working class people. And when they do become rich, it's because the poor and working class people have given their all. They have sacrificed. They have overconsumed. They have overworked in order to give rich people the privileges and advantages that they have. So that relationship is, we can define it as a very toxic relationship, and it's one that is continuously just not giving an equal kind of loving, an equal kind of feedback, and you always have this friction. That's why the worker is always protesting about the conditions that the rich provides. The worker is always, antagonizing because of the unfair wages that they get. So as long as capitalism continues, you always have that dynamic. Again, the anti-capitalist always looks at dynamics. We see the players, the characters at play, and we see the what's making the problem bigger, and that's how we analyze. So when you analyze capitalism, you can't look at capitalism from an isolated standpoint, because it is not that. It is you must analyze capitalism through holistic lens. You have to look at everybody involved and then see how they are interacting and interplaying with one another. That's how you get a more profound, a more solid viewpoint or conclusion about capitalism. So that relationship, I always think of the dynamic of the rich and poor and working class in the same way as I think of the oppressor-oppressed relationship. Now, oppressor-oppressed relationship is an idea that came from Frank Fanon. He was a very popular, I want to say, he was a psychiatrist, but he was also very into the French and their occupation of Algeria. He fought in the Algeria War. He was from the country of Martinique, which is in the Caribbean. But Frank also wrote about how the oppressor and the oppressed people intertwine. They're together all the time, and they again is that feeding off each other, just like the poor and the working class and the poor. Is that relationship, but the relationship is toxic. It is not beneficial. It is not enriching. And Frank Fanon theorized that the oppressor and oppressed, the reason why the oppressed people resort to violence is because they see that the oppressor uses violence to get what they want. And just think about that for a few minutes, a few seconds. Like, it is through violence, it is through force that capitalism operates. There's always the venture capitalist who's going into a different country because they want something there. There's oil, there's land, there's something that the venture capitalist wants, and they sometimes will do whatever it takes to get it. Now, just think of countries in Latin America, like Brazil, for example, how people are trying to get to the Amazon and get access to, I think they said there's gold. Of course, there's the lumber, the timber, whatever they have there. And how people are coming into the territories of the indigenous people who are there, and the indigenous people who are trying to preserve what is left, because they have seen the damage of when the oppressor comes, when the venture capitalist comes. And what the venture capitalist does is destruction. They destroy things to get what they want, because the venture capitalist mentality is profit. Whatever I need to do to get profit, that's what I'm going to do. And whereas the marginalized people, the working class, the poor people, they are striving to preserve. They're seeing the destruction in full sight, and they put up a fight so that nothing more is destructed, nothing more is destroyed, because they understand how destruction feeds into more destruction, and there's just that generational cycle of chaos. So you always look at the dynamics of that, the dynamics of the rich and the poor people, and how those relationships are always meeting. They meet at the marketplace, right? And many times a venture capitalist will be the one who leaves rich and with more resources, whereas the working class and poor person has to bargain, has to in order to just make a few bucks, they have to sacrifice, I should say, and they have to sell their products, their ideas to the venture capitalists, because at the end of the day, they too, we the poor and working class people, we have to pay rent, we have to pay a car note, we have to send our children to school. So there is that there is always that sacrifice. It seems to fall on our backs a lot, the poor and working class people at least, because we're constantly giving to the venture capitalists, to the rich, whereas we are not reaping the benefits. We are continuously working, we're continuously having to not get paid because the venture capitalist does not reciprocate fairness in any way, shape, or form. I mean, if they have to, if one of the reasons why the venture capitalists and the businesses and the corporations, they go into other countries is because they are after lenient laws, they are after low wages, and they will do whatever it takes to, again, get the profit. If it means depriving the poor and working class people of that life, or that solid livelihood, then that's what the venture capitalists will do. They do whatever it takes to get to the profit. At the end of the day, the system of capitalism, as you know, is all about profit. It is not about the agenda is not to enrich others. It is not about enriching the environment. It's all about taking. It's a taking mechanism that is always at play, and one that we, as the laborers and the consumer, the working class, the poor people, we must all see its destruction and put an end to it. And we must never believe that we should support it or that we should celebrate it, because it does not need to be celebrated. Capitalism should not be celebrated in any way, shape, or form. Therefore, I always encourage you to, do your part to make sure that this system does not continue to flow in the way that it has and the way it continues to do. That you have to do your part as a humanitarian, as an activist, to make sure that change happens for us as we are still here, as well as future generations. Check out the website, dismantlecapitalismglobally.com, and support this channel any way that you can. And I hope to have you again.